And we're live. Hey, everybody. This is Bradley Benner with KetoVIP, and Roberto's on with me today. What's up, Roberto?
Nothing much, Bradley. How's everything going?
It's going great, man. Kind of excited. It's been a while since we've done one of these. Probably too long. I was trying to do these once a month, and I think last month, because of the sweepstakes, the giveaway, we were just crazy doing a ton of videos, and we never got to it. So, kind of nice to have this, Q&A, new member orientation webinar to get started. And it looks like on the event page, we only had one question so far. So I just want to mention, guys, the Google event page that you should be viewing now in order to be attending this webinar. You just post your questions directly on that page. That's the best way to do it. If you post questions in Facebook, we're probably not going to see them because I typically watch the event page during this webinar. Okay. So with that said, until we get into a few more questions, also anybody that is online watching, go ahead and maybe post, who you are, where you're from, that kind of thing on the event page as well. It's kind of neat just to get to know our members a little bit, and so that's one way to do it.
Yeah,
so
one time we were doing a live, I was doing a live video, and I mentioned that too, like, name your place, and where are you? And there was people from all over the place. So it was actually really, it was nice to see it.
Yeah.
Who would have our little impact on the world, right?
Yeah. Well, it's pretty cool. All right, so let me double check, make sure the event page is good, and then I'll probably pull the camera back for a minute. Well, I'll wait until we get some more questions. Okay, yeah, it's live. We're good to go. All right, so the first question came in, and then I want to share. Let me get into some of that first real quick, because it's funny. I want to tell a quick story, brief story, and also talk a little bit about progress that I've made in the last couple months with the ketogenic diet, and I've got the stats and stuff to prove it. And I talked about this in the group several times, but there's an app. Okay, so I've got a million things going on in my head right now. So you guys bear with me while I try to figure out which direction to go, because we want to also not make this webinar too long. But one of the things I wanted to share was, I've hit plateaus throughout my weight loss journey. Even in the last 2 years. I started August 7th of 2015. So I am damn near on the 2-year anniversary of starting to get into shape. I started ketosis in November of 2015. So I've been there in ketosis for about 20 months. And what's interesting is I've hit a couple plateaus, and every time I've hit a plateau, it's been because mainly, I needed to either adjust my calorie intake, or I needed to increase my intensity level of exercise or my duration of exercise. But I found increasing intensity has more effect than duration. But one of the things that I also noticed was, if I started to get a little bit lax on tracking my calorie intake, then I would start to stall out or plateau out on losing weight. But as long as I stayed vigilant on tracking every day and making sure that I was within the correct macronutrient ratio, and in fact, part of the reason when I stalled out, I think I had kind of switched from what was called a strict ketogenic diet to more of what was called a targeted ketogenic diet, which is a variation of it, which includes more protein intake. And so you lose a little bit of fat intake to increase protein intake. And again, I kind of stalled out, and I was eating more calories, and I started to gain weight. That was up until February-ish of this year. And so I went back from 213 to 228. And then in February, right before we did the first 30-day fitness challenge, that's when I decided to get strict again. And so I switched my diet macros back to a strict ketogenic macro, which the way that I've been following it is 10% carbs, 20% protein, and 70% fat. And then I started, making sure that I was staying vigilant with my calories every day, and I reduced my calorie intake slightly because I had lost weight. As you lose weight, your calorie intake requirements go down as well. And so once I got it down below a certain point, and I had to experiment with what that magic number was. My Fitbit tells me, by the way, what what my daily calorie burn is, and it's not 100% accurate, but it's close enough to get an idea. So I could kind of dial it in from that as well. So essentially what I did was I just made sure that I was hitting about on average an 800 calorie deficit per day. That was including my exercise, and just tracking everything I eat, making sure that with exercise included that I was hitting about an 800 calorie deficit. And that was in February. And since then, I was 228 at that time. I'm now today, as of today, 183 pounds. So that was like another, what, 45, 45 pounds. So 45 pounds since, and this was the middle of February. So, what I wanted to talk about mainly was why it's so important to track. And so that's really where this conversation is going for a moment, is I just wanted to talk about how important it is to track. In my opinion, I have found the only way for me to consistently lose weight with predictability is to track it, and to track everything. My macros, my calorie intake, my exercise. And so a Fitbit's great for that. And one of the other things is, even when I hit those plateaus, because now like I weigh myself daily, and I know a lot of people do when they're dieting, they weigh themselves daily. Yeah. And it's okay to do that. Look, I understand wanting to weigh yourself daily, but if you're just using a regular old plain old scale, digital or analog, it doesn't matter. You're going to experience days where you go up in weight. You're going to experience days where you stay the same. Then you're going to have a significant drop. And my point is, it becomes very frustrating when you don't know what's going on internally with your body to know whether or not you're still making progress. And it's so easy, and probably why the vast majority of people quit dieting before they see significant results is because of that very factor. They're just not seeing the weight number move, even though internally there are changes being made in their bodies. And so, there's a scale you can buy at Amazon. In fact, while we're talking about this, and by the way, Roberto, feel free to jump in at any moment.
No, I'm letting you go because I'm agreeing with most of all what you're going to say. I'm going to piggyback at the end because I do have something to say, especially.
Okay. So what I want to show real quick, and then we're going to just run to Amazon real quick. I'll grab the link and post it on the event page too, because I think this is important. But there is a app, or it's a scale that also has an app, and it's called the Weight Guru's scale. And so again, guys, I'll drop the link on the page. But this one right here, it's $60, one-time fee. And it's really, really cool because it integrates with Fitbit as well as a lot of the other major fitness trackers. And it also integrates with MyFitnessPal. So it's got its own app which tracks your weight, your body fat percentage, your muscle mass percentage, your water weight, and then your BMI, which I think BMI is a useless metric in my opinion. But for the other ones, I think they're pretty valuable to see, mainly body fat and muscle mass. Because what I found, and I'm just going to hold my phone up to the webcam here in a minute and show you guys some of the readouts. But what I found is by being able to track both your body fat as well, besides just weight, being able to track body fat and muscle mass, is that you can see that there's a progression being made, so that even on those days where the scale jumps up 2 or 3 pounds overnight, and that's very discouraging, and then you stall out for maybe 2, 3, 4 days at a time and you see no movement, you can see, if you're tracking it on a daily basis, your body fat changing and your muscle mass changing. And that will keep you going, because then you know that you're still making progress, even if you're not seeing your weight move. And that, to me, has been one of the primary factors for me being able to always, like, since I started using this in February, it's been great for me because it keeps me motivated to know that, I'm making progress even if the weight doesn't budge, if that makes sense. All right. Yeah. So what were you going to say?
I was actually going to say that one of the main motivating factors for anybody continuing on something, especially if it's unpleasant to do, like going from eating sugar to not eating sugar at all, a big pull for you in the direction of you continuing to do that is a certainty that what you're doing is working. And so think tools like this that help you, like if you were just getting on a normal scale every day and not seeing the numbers move, your level of certainty is already a little bit budged, right? This is just one of those tools that can help you achieve that certainty. Not that you need it, like a person like Bradley, Bradley uses, I'm sure, in a way that's not like, holding him back. It's just helpful. It's purely helpful for him. It's not something that everybody needs, but for those people who need that motivation, and every little bit counts, every little sign that shows you that you're going towards that result is going to help. 100% I'm with you on that. And that harkens back to the calorie counting. I wanted to mention, I never, ever counted calories until I got into KetoVIP. And this was during times when I was even working out to compete in fitness competitions, men's physique it was. And I was at the end of a 6-month strict training, but not so strict dieting. It's so strange that people used to come up to me and ask, what are you doing for your diet? And honestly, I never had the nutritionist in me. It's just kind of always been natural for me. And because I was working so hard at such a high capacity and the workouts were really, really tough and demanding, I was able to kind of slide with not being so pedantic on my calorie needs and things like that. But then I realized, I said, the results that I was getting with working out were so strategized. I went into the gym with a notebook. I went into the gym with the entire workout routine that had to be done from A to Z every single day. All the time spent in the gym was not for nothing. And I said, why don't I take that same mentality to actually eating and see how further my results could go? And it wasn't until I linked up with Bradley and KetoVIP during our first challenge, or my first challenge, that I counted my calories without doing much exercise at all. You got to understand, I haven't been inside of a gym for the better part of a year, and I was someone who was always in the gym. And so outside of the gym, it's really hard to maintain the amount of muscle that I had at the time, because I was so used to so much resistance that when you drop that out for so long, naturally your muscle is going to atrophy. So a way for me to kind of just keep hold of some sort of shape and tone of my muscle, the diet really helped. And bringing it down to very specific numbers and details, I was able to maintain a lean physique. Actually, I lost weight, which I don't know why is surprising to me that I lost weight, but I did. And it gave me the edge that losing all of that fitness kind of, it filled the gap, because on one end of the extreme, I was not caring about my calories and caring 100% about workouts. And now it's much more about caring about dialing in my calories and not so much about the hard pushing of all that weight that I used to do. And I'm finding the happy medium now, but with 100%. I think the best way to go, if you can, optimally, is both. When we're doing these workouts, these monthly workouts, you want to stay within these boundaries of these guidelines that we're telling you to do, because there's a reason why we're not just telling you to just do some amount of jumping jacks or some amount of push-ups. And because the specificity helps so much with getting the results. You have no idea.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Weird echo all of a sudden. Why is that? Let's try it again. Okay, that sounds better. Yeah, so I mean, and that's what I was getting at, was like, for me, being able to track was something that if I start to get lax and not track, then my progress slows. And so like for this challenge that we're in progress right now, I said that my goals were going to change slightly. So instead of being purely on a cut cycle, which I've been on since the first challenge, which started on Monday, March 1st or 5th or something like that. It was in March that the first challenge started for KetoVIP. And I've been on a cut cycle ever since. And I've lost, like I said, 45 pounds since then. I've also lost some strength though. And you know, I've noticed what's crazy, my 1 rep max for, like bench press and deadlifts and things like that has declined, actually, even though I'm still heavy strength training as much. And that's because obviously when you lose that much weight, you're going to lose a little bit of muscle mass as well. It's just part of the process. Try to minimize that as much as possible. And the ketogenic diet is really good for minimizing muscle loss because of what they call protein sparing effect. And so, I've tried to minimize that, and I'm okay with having lost some strength because I've gotten so damn lean. Like I think I'm leaner now than I've ever been in my entire life. It's crazy. I can like start to see like 6-pack on my stomach and stuff. Like, I'm not kidding. And from going to being obese 2 years ago, 280 pounds, to being able to see the outline of ab muscles and stuff, it's just insane. And so, like, that's why I said tracking to me, it makes me sure of my diet and my and the goal that I'm trying to reach, and knowing that I'm trying to hit it. So with that, I just want to show you this app really quickly. And guys, unfortunately, I don't know how to pipe my phone screen into the webinar. So I'm just going to hold it up and show it. And I know it's probably very difficult to see, but yeah, that one's really bad because of the glare from the front facing lights. But it's a an app that from the Weight Guru scale that basically just tracks my results. And if you can see, I know there's some yellow lines in there. The red lines that you're looking at, those are the days that I did not check in or weigh in. And those are days that Like I've been traveling a lot in the last couple of weeks. So those were days that I wasn't home, but that was, you know, this is showing weight. And I know, again, it's very difficult to see because of the lighting, but it goes up and down, up and down. And so, but the idea is to see the trend over time going down, or at least body fat going down, weight going down, muscle mass going up. And so that was weight. But if I show like the body fat percentage, this is body fat. And again, I know it's difficult to see, but the same thing, the trend is going down. You can obviously see on the days that I had gone out for vacation, I've been traveling, like I said, a lot in the last month. And so I've gained weight when I've been out traveling. And then I come back and I get right back into my regimen, and boom, it starts coming off again. And then lastly, I'll just show you this one. And there's other metrics as well, but this is muscle mass. And so you can see muscle mass is going up. The trend is going up. And so to me, like I said, with the app itself, you know, it says today for the first time I actually hit 20% body fat, which is the lowest that it's ever been. Now, I don't know how accurate the number is. Like, I'm not saying that that the Weight Guru scale is saying that I'm 20% body fat and that's an accurate number. I don't know whether that's accurate or not. To me, that seems high, especially because like I said, I think I'm leaner now than I've ever been. I don't feel like I'm carrying around 20% body fat, but maybe so. Again, to me, that what's more important is seeing the progress in the measurements and the changes. So whether that's an accurate number or not, I don't care. It still signifies what kind of progress is being made. Does that make sense? So, okay, cool. Well, that was one thing I wanted to cover. Now, one other thing I want to cover, and then we'll get into the one question that's been posted on the event page. If anybody is on the page right now and you have questions, I recommend posting them now because there is a little bit of a delay. And if we get through this next couple things and there's no additional questions, then we'll wrap it up early, which is perfectly fine. These are for you guys, but if you feel that you know enough about the ketogenic diet that you don't need to ask questions on a webinar, we don't have to stick around, if that makes sense. So, okay, so one other thing experience, which is funny. This past weekend, I went to Memphis to go visit. Well, I went on Wednesday last week, and I was out there for 5 days to go visit some friends. And I basically fell off the keto wagon for a couple of days. It was just 2 days. The first day or two I was there, I was strict. But then on Saturday and Sunday was a driving day. Well, so those were the 2 days. Saturday, we went to a baseball game, and I ate kind of like crap before the baseball game. And then I drank a bunch of IPA beer at the baseball game. And then on Sunday, I drove home, and just because of like, it was a 14-hour drive. It was ridiculous. And for convenience factors, and I had known that I had blown my macros the day before. I ate like a Subway sub and stuff like that on Sunday. And I stayed with my calorie goals, which is, it's crazy to think this, but I thought for sure when I came home, because I had blown my macros, even though I stayed within calorie goals, I thought because I'd been in ketosis for so long and I knew that I had pushed myself out of ketosis, I thought for sure that I would have gained weight or whatever, or that I would get bloated, retain water, because that's typically what happens like when I do a cheat meal. I don't do cheat days anymore. I used to do that, you know, a year ago, things like that, but I found it takes too long to get back into ketosis from doing a full cheat day. So I stopped, and now occasionally, I don't do them weekly. I just do them when I feel like I need it, or if I get a craving for something that has some carbs, I'll save it for one particular cheat meal. And I'll do that. And then now with just one cheat meal, and I don't go crazy and eat like, you know, 4,000 calories at that one meal. I don't do that. I just eat whatever it is that I wanted to eat in a normal portion size. And then I'm satisfied. I've fulfilled that craving. And then I can get back into ketosis usually within 24 hours that way. So it's not a big issue. I haven't been out of ketosis for like really knocked myself out of ketosis like hardcore in a long time, but I did over this past weekend. So I haven't tested myself yet today to see if I'm back in yet. I doubt it. I probably will be sometime tomorrow. But what's interesting is I weighed myself today and I actually lost a pound throughout that week that I was gone, or 5 days that I was in Memphis, and even blowing my macros to the point where you know, they were way off. I stayed within my calorie goal and I came back a pound lighter. So it just goes to show you guys that like once you've trained your body like to start losing weight and all that kind of stuff, I'm not sure because I haven't practiced, I haven't experimented, excuse me, with going off of the ketogenic diet for a period of time, but staying within calorie goal targets to see if I can continue to lose weight. I'm afraid to test it because I don't want to stall my progress. You know what I mean? So what kind of insights do you have on that?
I was going to say, you know, the good thing that I take out of stories like this is that once it happened, like there's this idea out there that people get so panicked if they're not in ketosis. But when you think it through, like Bradley, you're somebody who's been on ketosis for 2 years now. There's not you don't have to have this oh crap moment that now that you just knocked yourself out of everything that you worked for, that it's all done, and now like let's just eat cakes and cookies for the rest of my life. No, like the way I look at it, and I think the way Bradley looks at it is like, look, if we're going to make the decision to get out of ketosis, which by the way, I do recommend, from all the reading that I've done, in my own personal opinion, I try to get out of ketosis every 10 days is what I've read, and I have managed to do that over the past 2 months now. But anyway, like, if you have this weird idea that if you're never in ketosis, you're this failure, which I think a lot of people in our group, I love you guys. I've got to give you a hard time. Stop worrying so much about like your number of ketosis. I know it's one of these things that we want to achieve, but ultimately, if you're in it for the long haul, you're going to eventually get there. So just relax. And a lot of us went off of the wagon. Literally, the other day, I saw a bunch of people posting that they went off the diet, and that's fine. And it was great because it was embraced. It's the worst when you're just hard on yourself and you act like it's the end of the world. Just hop back on, do it again. And it's not, people lose weight eating carbs. It's not like you can't lose weight eating carbs. So just because you had a little bit more than you can, don't let ketosis become your god. Ketosis is a great tool to do the job. Bradley is case in point, without a doubt. But look at this as a it's longer than just a minute, like, today I'm in ketosis or I'm not, and it's going to let me ruin my day. No, let's not make that the habit. And with that, I will, one thing I just wanted to mention, because we were getting it in the group a lot, it's some point that I just really want to drive home, and what I've been understanding from my own body as well, is that ketosis is much, much, much more of a restriction of sugars or a restriction of carbs than it is, and it sounds controversial, than a load of fat.
Right. So you're absolutely right.
If you're thinking that all of your problems are going to go away by just eating exorbitant amounts of fat, you might actually be in ketosis, eating a ton of fat, but not lose weight.
That's right.
On ketosis. Yep. Ketosis really is about, way more important to think about ketosis as limiting and restricting sugars and carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates, than it is unloading all this fat onto into your diet. If you can't sustain 75% of a day's worth of calories from fat, my honest to goodness point to you would be like, just don't do that. You don't have to have all that fat if you don't need it, right? You can just as well get in. I went on a ketosis fast, an avocado fast. I was not having crazy amounts of calories. I was having less than 500 calories per day. And I remember putting my carbohydrate, protein, and fat breakdown into the group at that point in time, because we had just started this latest challenge. So I put in my macros, and it was funny because it looked like my macros were way off and my calories were way off. Yet I was in ketosis in 2 days.
Yeah.
I didn't have all this crazy amount of fat that people think we need. The fact is, you have the fat on your body that you want to produce ketones.
That's right.
And
so
go ahead.
I want to add to that, because you're right about limiting sugar and glucose. That's absolutely right. And the idea, guys, with ketosis is that, like Roberto just said, there's dietary fat and then there's your body fat. And your body, when it's in ketosis, is going to run off of fat, period, which means it's going to turn to dietary sources of fat when available, and then it's going to turn to body fat when not available. So the point is, it is to restrict glucose and sugar so that you don't produce glucose. But it's also, if you want to lose weight, it's restricting calories. Mm-hmm. And that's where it comes back to. And I've heard other people argue before that you can lose weight. You don't have to count calories on ketosis and you can lose weight. Maybe so, but for me in particular, I know with certainty that I'm going to lose weight as long as I stay under a certain calorie limit, and especially knowing by restricting your glucose intake or carbohydrate intake, you can get to your body is burning fat for fuel, which would therefore, under a calorie restriction, would be burning your body fat for fuel, because you're not consuming your energy needs via calorie intake. If that makes sense. So think about calories as energy. So you have to create an energy deficit. You have to expend more energy than you consume in order for ketosis to burn body fat for fuel. And so therefore, if you're tracking your calories, and that's why something like, again, I mentioned the Weight Guru scale, but I got a Fitbit, which, by the way, this is the second Fitbit I've bought in a year. And it's cracked. And this time it's cracked because I was doing kettlebell stuff and it smacked it and cracked it. But the next fitness tracker I get is going to be a different one. It's not going to be a Fitbit. But my point is that by having a Fitbit, you can see like basically what your daily, you can go to like caloriecalculator.net, whatever, and figure out kind of like a median number for what your body weight, age, height is, for like how many calories you should be consuming on a daily basis. But if you have something like a fitness tracker, you can know with more certainty what your average daily calorie burn is, and then you can adjust or modify your diet and or exercise routine to get to the deficit levels that will give you the weight loss that you want based upon the timeline that you want, if that makes sense. And so, you know, again, I think that's very, very important what you just said, Roberto, is that it's not, you know, and I see that comment or come up often, guys, in the Facebook group, and forgive me for not being as, you know, as engaged in the Facebook group. I've got a lot of, I got various businesses, and they've been very overwhelming recently. So, and I know Roberto's got it handled well. So, but you know, as far as like, I see the questions come in or the comments come in, and people are saying that a lot. Well, like, I'm having a hard time consuming enough fat. Well, don't try to force feed yourself a bunch of additional fat to get your macros right. Instead, maybe restrict your calories or your carbs and your calories a bit more, and that will get you to the point where you're burning fat regardless. You don't need the dietary fat if it's available from your body. So,
big point.
All right, so the other side of that, excuse me, the other side of that, or other part of that story, really quickly, about going off of ketosis for a couple days and then actually still losing a pound, was I haven't really been like hard out of ketosis in quite some time since I really started it, because other than just an occasional cheat day, which then I told you evolved to a cheat meal, I had pretty much been in ketosis now for almost 2 years, for like 20 months. And I've never really gotten out of ketosis in those, you know, for long term. And I think 2 days isn't really long term, but to me it felt like eternity because it's been so long since I've followed this diet. And so anyways, I didn't think I was going to experience the keto flu. I did. And yesterday was pretty bad. Excuse me. Yesterday I felt like crap. I just absolutely felt awful yesterday, but I knew what it was. And so, you know, I just took steps to try to reduce the symptoms. I consumed some more salt throughout the day. I'm actually testing keto-CANA. I guess people call it Ketocana. But that's BHB salts, and it's literally got and calcium in it, and it's got a real high sodium content and stuff, and that helps to alleviate the symptoms. So, and in this morning, I've experienced a little bit of what I've seen other, and I didn't experience this the first time I got into ketosis, or the first time I was in the keto flu, but this time, waking up this morning, and for the last 2 days in a row now, waking up has been incredibly difficult. And usually in ketosis, I wake up, I'm full of energy, like instantly. And so I thought it was interesting to kind of feel those effects of like the keto flu. So what I've liked about being in ketosis for so long is, and I mentioned this on the last webinar that we did, which was about 2 months ago, is that when you are in ketosis and you've been in ketosis for quite some time, it's easier to slip in and out of ketosis than it is initially. And so, you know, for me, I haven't experienced that keto flu again since the initial time that I went into deep ketosis, and now this was the first time I experienced it again. But it's good to know that once you know it, because then you can just take the steps to work around it and know that it's only going to last a day or two, and then you're done. So, okay, cool. I don't see any other questions other than one, and so unless, Roberto, you got something specific you want to cover, I'm just going to jump on that question, and we're going to wrap it up because we got about 30 minutes in anyways.
Yeah, let's hop into the question.
Okay, cool. Let's do that then. And this replay will go out, obviously, to the Facebook groups, and we'll probably mail it out to our list as well, so everybody that gets our emails and that kind of stuff. So this question, and let me zoom in on this a little bit because I know it's probably hard to see on that side. So Karen asks, so I may not be able to go live with it. I don't get off work until 4:30. I have a question concerning fiber. I take fiber because my doc told me I needed to because of health issues. I'm in ketosis most of the time, but find that after I take fiber, it seems to be really light-colored urine test strips. Any thoughts on if you think that's affecting ketosis? It also happens to be usually within that first hour or so after workout. Maybe that. I usually take my fiber first thing in the AM and then work out. I also drink Keto OS before and or during my workout. Okay, Karen. I've got a couple comments on that. Well, first of all, okay, from my understanding, when you work out, you actually, especially in ketosis, you're using ketones for fuel. But what I found, what I think is interesting, because and Roberto, you can probably shed some light on this, is that so? In my thought would be that perhaps after you work out, you've depleted your ketone levels because you used them for energy when you were working out. But I found the exact opposite. And I know I don't test myself very often anymore. I haven't needed to. But when I was first getting into ketosis, and learning about it and kind of seeing what things affected it, I used a lot of test strips. And I always found after working out that my ketone, like it was the darkest, like super dark. So I don't know. But I also take Keto OS, or now I'm testing Ketocana or Keto-CANA or whatever. I'm testing that as well. I take a exogenous ketone prior to working out every day. So anyways, but what do you think about it?
Well, to your comment there is a, and depending on the type of workout, I'm assuming the workouts that you were talking about were high intensity. Yes?
High intensity, yeah, CrossFit and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right, because if typically like the metabolic pathways, when you're working out hard versus moderate, like your aerobic and anaerobic capacities, like they're affecting what's being burned, whether it's sugar, which your body always will have. Your body can maintain a steady level of blood sugar because it's called gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis, I believe that's what it's called, and it's a regeneration of sugar from substrates and protein. That's why the people kind of get confused. They think like if I have too much protein, all of a sudden it's going to turn into like a chocolate shake in your belly. That's not true. That just means in the absence of glucose from carbohydrates, in a normal state of being, not in ketosis, but in a normal Western diet, when you deplete carbohydrates in an excess amount, the protein, the digested protein can be rebuilt up into sugar and stored in your muscles and in your liver. And depending on your type of workout intensity is going to depend on whether you're going to tap into that sugar or your fat as an energy source. And that has to do with intensities of workout. So I don't know what your intensity is. It would definitely be with what Bradley's talking about with high intensity. It would make sense that after, if he took a blood test, he would have more ketones in his body, because in a high intensity state, the way it works out is he needs to tap into an alternate fuel source. Therefore, there was no sugar, ketones need to be produced. And that's a byproduct of metabolized fat. If you're having less ketones, one thing I will say is that if it's from fiber, like you're noticing right after fiber, if you're noticing any type of bloating because of the fiber, that might be, it's number one, definitely going to affect weight loss. You won't be losing weight if you're bloating at all. It's just, you just can't do it. However, I will say this, I had a problem when I first started consuming fiber on a ketosis diet, that I would bloat, not necessarily lessen my ketones, although that could have been the case. But fiber, all it does is it feeds the microbes in your gut, the good and the bad. That's the caveat, the good and the bad. So a lot of times people just think fiber is the key. Like just take fiber and you're healthy. Well, as a matter of fact, if you have a terrible gut, which a lot of people do, coming from a Western diet, and you're going straight to keto, you're eating, a relatively good keto diet, and all of a sudden now you're supplementing fiber in your digestive system, when you have probably a gut microbe of a bunch of bad bacteria, you're actually feeding that bad bacteria too. And that's what I was doing. And I was bloating really bad after my shakes. I wasn't losing weight. And it wasn't until I found out that I had to actually cut out the fiber. And actually I took a probiotic supplement to really help out my gut. Once that happened, I was taking the fiber, I was not bloating at all, and it was helpful for me. So as far as the ketones go, I can't really answer that directly.
Yeah. Well, this is the reason I pulled this up is this is the fiber supplement that I take. I take 1 scoop of this every single day, immediately following my workout or my exercise period. And in fact, I stopped buying any sort of commercially available protein powder that like they sell in like GNC, like all those muscle bound, all that shit it's garbage, guys. Those proteins that they sell they're so full of crap, and they're made from crappy protein sources or whey sources, or like it's just crap. And I've found that I started buying natural denatured or non-denatured whey protein from grass-fed cows. It's a little bit more expensive, but there's no flavoring, nothing like that. And I make my own protein shakes now. And what I do is I use, for my post-workout shake, I use a scoop of Fiber DX, which is like 7 or 8 grams of protein. It's 7 grams of protein. It's also 11 grams of fiber, which is really, really good. It's really high fiber count. And I mix 1 scoop of that with 1 scoop of collagen, Sports Research collagen peptides. I've posted that in the group several times. We can look at that in a moment. But that's another 10 grams of protein, 0 fat, 0 carbs. And then I mix 1 scoop or 2 scoops, it's 2 tablespoons of peanut butter powder, which I don't know if you guys have heard of PB Fit peanut butter powder, but it's amazing. If you like peanuts or peanut butter, it's really, really good. And then I also mix in 1 scoop of MCT oil powder or coconut oil powder by Quest Nutrition. They make both of them. And that adds about 7 or 8 grams, depending on which one it is, 7 or 8 grams of fat to my post-work protein shake. So it ends up being like something like, I don't know, 24 grams of or 25 or 27 grams or something of protein, and like 10 grams or 11 grams of fat, and about 200 calories for my protein shake, post-workout protein. And it tastes delicious, but it gives me the fiber count and everything else that I need to really keep my digestive system, digestive tract functioning properly. One of the things I found out was, and it's funny, I noticed in the Keto VIP group, one of the questions that came up was, or comments that were made anyways, was that constipation, that ketosis can cause constipation. I had the exact opposite. When I started getting the ketosis, I had loose stools, and it was awful, and it almost to the point where I almost quit the diet because I thought that I couldn't, it was just annoying. It was an inconvenience. It was uncomfortable. But I found that by taking fiber, that I was able to prevent that. And also, I also get a lot of fiber because I do eat quite a bit of fibrous vegetables, like spinach and kale and what do you call it, arugula or whatever, spring mix salads. I eat a lot of salads and avocado, stuff that's like fibrous vegetables, broccoli and things like that. And I don't have any of those issues anymore. Okay. So I just wanted to point out that like this is the exact same protein that I've been using now for well over a year and a half. 1 scoop every day. It's a great product. I know they also have some other types like this one, which would be the psyllium husk powder. What you want to look for though is something that's got a more soluble fiber. Insoluble fiber is the type of fiber that you'll get from like eating fibrous vegetables. A lot of that is insoluble fiber. It acts as like a broom in your colon. But the soluble fiber will actually absorb into like liquids and make them more substantive, substantive or whatever. So it's more, to me, that kind of helps prevent loose stools, is having this more soluble fiber. And then the other side of having more of the insoluble fiber from like fibrous vegetables is more about like keeping your digestive tract clean. And on one more point, before we get Roberto's comment on this, is probiotics, I think, are really, really important. I think one of the issues, especially coming off of a standard American diet or a Western-based diet, which is a mostly carb-based diet, is your gut flora, your microbiome is full of bad bacteria and stuff. And that's a lot of the times where those hunger pangs come from, is the bad bacteria looking literally for food, for a source of food, which would be sugars and carbs. And so if you can get your gut balanced, the quicker you get your gut balance, the quicker you'll lose those carb cravings and those sugar cravings, and the faster you should be able to get into ketosis as well, because your whole digestive tract is just running more efficiently. It will also help to increase your immune system. I haven't been sick since I got on the ketosis diet. I haven't even had a cold. Knock on wood. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but we're talking 2 years now, and I haven't even had even a cough or a sneeze. You know what I mean? And I think I owe it to my digestive tract being really healthy because I no longer I'm full of bad bacteria, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Go ahead and comment on that while I pull up this book real quick.
Yeah, guys, as simple as I can make it, a diet that we're used to in America causes inflammation. Inflammation causes, and this is obviously broad, but inflammation causes the breakdown and regeneration of the breakdown of good gut bacteria and the generation of bad gut bacteria. And the key is they feed on the same thing. Fiber is good for the gut bacteria, but what's the context here? You're feeding it to a good gut environment or a bad gut environment. So what I was doing was feeding fiber to a bad gut environment. And it was feeding on it just as it would a healthy gut environment, and it was causing bloating, it was causing all sorts of issues that I don't want. How do you combat that? If you notice that you're taking in fiber and you're bloating, you're gassing, you don't actually feel good, well, I would say back up on the fiber and get your gut straight. How do you get that? You got to get a really, really good probiotic. I'm not trying to name drop the one that I use, which is the only one that I ever use. It's called Elixa, and there's a whole reason why I do use that. It's a week regimen, like a 6-day regimen of pills, 10 a day, and that will completely wipe out any of the bad, and for most people, and regenerate much of the new in about a week's time, and you will notice it without a doubt. Once that happens, I will continue probably taking maybe a daily or a weekly or monthly probiotic, or start taking your fiber again. Notice how your digestion is different. A lot of the times you might be so whacked out that you might need to really. What Elixa does is sometimes you can do 2 rounds of 6 days, so 12 days back to back of a good strong probiotic to really beat up all of the gunk and the crap that's going on in your gut, and really stabilize that environment. Because one of these ideas out there is that, and I honestly, I have to say from my own experience of life, it's been true to me, although there's no data to prove this. One of these ideas out there is that in the presence of a healthy gut, that practically anybody can get any good sustenance from any type of food that they're eating. Like your gut is so good at pulling out goodness from whatever you give it. So if you're noticing that your digestion's all out of whack, get your gut right. Get a good book. Understand the gut and its importance in digestion, because there's a reason why 2 separate people can be on the same diet and get completely different results. A lot of it has to do with your gut.
And this book right here is an amazing book where I learned all about that. It's called The Skinny Gut Diet by Brenda Watson. It's an easy read, and it goes into, she spent decades in the medical field looking, researching and understanding how the gut microbiome really affects health and inflammation and chronic inflammation, which is like caused because of bad bacteria. And there's so much that, and it's crazy because she doesn't talk about, well, I think she mentions the ketogenic diet a couple times in the book, but she talks about low carb diet. So it's not a strict ketogenic diet that she recommends, but it's funny because it's right in line with the ketogenic diet, because if you starve your body of those types of foods that feed the bad bacteria and help them to proliferate, and a ketogenic diet by its nature will starve that side of it, then eventually the good bacteria take over. And that's what a probiotic helps to do, is it helps to feed the good bacteria. Also prebiotics, and prebiotics can be taken, they're best to be taken naturally, like from foods. Like onion is a great source of prebiotic. And I eat a ton of onion. I almost add onion to everything, which is great. But there's other prebiotics that you can take, and you can also buy it in capsule form as well. But those are also good if you're trying to balance your gut. It's a good way to do something like the ketogenic diet, or like a very, very low carb diet for a few days while you're taking some probiotics, and even starve yourself from the fiber initially until you get through, and you've done kind of like a cleanse. And once you've gotten through that kind of cleanse phase, then you can actually start to introduce some like, you know, more maybe some carb heavier foods like vegetables and maybe your fiber supplement and stuff like that, and start introducing that back in, and you'll see. But as Roberto said, that, you know, so much like chronic inflammation and stuff is created that we don't even know, and it's a direct result in health issues like you know, having a poor or a weak immune system and getting sick all the time, and, you know, all these kind of things. Even joint pains and stuff can actually be occurring because of you know, having bad your gut microbiome being out of whack. And so there's so many like benefits of just balancing your gut, that a lot of the times people just balancing their gut, that's alone, they'll start to lose weight even without like trying maybe to lose weight. They'll start losing weight because their hormones and everything start to balance out.
Right.
So
it's like a car. Like, think about your car. If you went in to get serviced and you got every mechanical part of your car cleaned out, wouldn't your car overall be more efficient? Theoretically,
yeah.
It would drive better. It would drive cleaner. It would you know, it would feel better as a driver. Theoretically,
and it would be more gas efficient, you know, fuel efficient and all that kind of stuff. So,
and without a doubt, we have to be thinking about that. But most people know more about their car than they do about their body. And if that's you, look, I think everybody at one point needs to, like, it's a big deal. We should understand our body to some degree of certainty, rather than putting our knowledge in the in the hands of people who may not necessarily care to help with it. You know, I'm not saying that they're out to kill you, but
they're out to make a profit, though. Like, that's the thing, you know, by like this food FDA or whatever food pyramid that they've been peddling for the last 50 years. And America is one of the fattest countries on earth, if not the fattest country on earth. So, because it's a grain-based, carbohydrate-based diet that is completely ass backwards. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why we have such chronic metabolic disease in the United States, especially because we've been peddled this crap for the last, you know, 50, 60, 80 years in commercialized farms with GMOs and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm not a tree hugger, guys. Any tree huggers on the phone, please don't take offense, or on the webinar, please don't take offense. I am not one of those people. But I can tell you right now that, like, you know, just eating again, similar to balancing out your gut. If people were just to switch to a whole food based diet, nothing processed, nothing out of a box, you know, stuff like that, they would start seeing their hormones balance out and start losing weight, and metabolic disease would start to decline, specifically just from eating whole food diets. So, I mean, there's so many different avenues. Ketogenic diet is one of them. What I like about the ketogenic diet is the fact that it's first of all very, very low carb by its nature, but it's also a whole food diet by its nature. And so you kind of get the best of both worlds, and it helps to balance your gut and do all of these other things. To me, it's just kind of like all bundled up into one neat package. Real quick, guys, because I do want to wrap it up, I just want to mention, I know that Roberto, and you're free, by the way, when we go to drop this webinar replay in the groups and stuff, if you want to drop the link over to your the probiotic that you use too. I just pointed this one out. This is just because this is the one that I use. Swanson vitamins, I only use them for a couple things, or shop from this store for a couple things, but this is one of them. It's a good probiotic. It's fairly cheap for the potency. And this is the one that I've been taking now for several months. So you might want to check that out.
Cool.
Okay. Okay, guys, that's it for questions. Looks like we only had one pre-posted question. So yeah, I hope you guys got some content out of this. And, you know, those of you that are watching the replay, you know, we'll try to do this roughly once a month. And obviously on the next one, hopefully we'll get a little bit more engagement as far as questions, but that's okay. We're going to do it anyway. So thanks, Roberto, for being here. I appreciate your time today, man.
Yeah, man, no problem. Everyone, kill it. If you're doing the 30-day challenge, continue to post your results. Let us know you're working just like we are, right? We're all in this to help each other. That's part of we have this group out there, right? So don't feel like you're abandoned at all. We're all here to help.
That's right. And that's part of the whole part of the challenge was to have just kind of like encouraging and motivation and stuff like that. So make sure you post daily bit, guys, and we'll do the same. If you're running any roadblocks, you know, we're here to help. So we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks.
Yep.